All right, the political and media elites are salivating over the prospects of the bases of both parties getting fired up in the midterms. Democrats hoping to harness the forces that propelled a socialist community organizer to victory last night over the number 4 Democrat in the House. Republicans looking to energize conservatives over a fall vote to replace Justice Kennedy on the Supreme Court. Conservatives like Rush Limbaugh think this tilts in the president's favor.
So let's review. Supreme Court has been clawing back freedom for the American people at breakneck speed. Close calls, but it doesn't matter. A win is a win at the court. Trump-endorsed candidates winning on the Republican side. Bernie Sanders, socialist communists winning in key places on the Democrat side.
Let's talk about it with tonight's panel. Fox News contributor Leslie Marshall and radio host on WMAL in D.C., Larry O'Connor. And you're both in the same studio. Leslie, welcome. We love having you.
Yeah. Keep to yourself now.
We've got bouncers standing by.
We're pals.
Okay, so yes, you are. So let's talk about this win last night. This very young upstart challenger in New York taking down the number 4 Democrat in the House. She is a former Bernie Sanders organizer. She is a socialist, or at least in part describes herself that way. Larry, are the Democrats now going to embrace, is this the wing of the party?
I think they have to. I think it's Bernie Sanders' party. I mean, all we've gotten from the Democrats for the last year and a half is we oppose Trump. There haven't been any other ideas. And let's face it, 2016, we like to think that the split was in the Republican Party over Donald Trump, right? But there was a major split in the Democratic Party between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. It was a very close primary. And they never resolved that. They've never had to resolve that. And now you see the energy and the power and the victories. You mentioned the young woman in New York. Let's not forget, in Maryland, we had Ben Jealous, complete political novice, former president of NAACP. He beat and came from behind in the polls. All the polls said he wasn't going to win. He's a Bernie Sanders guy. He endorsed Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders endorsed him, and he beat an establishment Democrat for the nomination for governor. This is who the Democrat Party is right now. I think it's the Democratic Socialist Party. Should we just call the party the Democratic Socialist?
No. Leslie's not going to give you that.
Embrace it, Leslie.
No. Well, let me ask you, do you think that they are trending that way? Because we have seen some races, and in some of the primary races where they did have someone really far to the left, that person didn't end up winning the primary, which sets them up better for the fall, a lot of people think. Or is that split still there? Because listen, when I was on the floor of the DNC, the Bernie bros were not having it. There was no kissing and making up with the Hillary Clinton wing at that point.
As a Democrat, that's my concern, is the split. So I don't agree with you. You got to look at this win in New York. You got to look at the district. This is a majority minority district. This is also a woman with youth, where some of the people, when they say vote them out, hashtag vote them out, they don't just mean Republicans. They mean Democrats as well. And I think we're seeing that in some. But she also did have a message, and she worked harder, I think, than her opponent, quite frankly. He didn't show up for a debate. He didn't show. I mean, a lot of people out there.
She was a serious threat. I mean, they way outspent her. I saw one figure today that said 18-1. I'm not sure if that's correct, but
it's not always the money. Sometimes it's just the hard labor. And the message that seems to be, and we're seeing this even in exit polls, is that voters are caring a lot more about health care than Democrats didn't think they'd be talking about health care again. Certainly they care about jobs, and they definitely care about immigration. So some of these social issues we're seeing really matter in districts like this. And it reminded me of the upset a couple of years ago with Eric Cantor.
Yeah, and that was primarily, we think about immigration. It's certainly what it seemed to be at the time where Eric Cantor was on that. Dave Brat now, of course, holds the seat running again this fall, like all of the houses. Now, let's talk about the impact potentially of Justice Kennedy, because it sounds like Mitch McConnell, who does run the calendar in the Senate and represents the majority in the Senate, wants to get this done before the midterm elections and before the new Supreme Court term starts. So who does this energize then to get out and vote? Because if the seat is already locked down, what motivation does the far right have to get out there and vote?
Well, this is easy. First of all, Rush Limbaugh is right. Rush Limbaugh is always right. And he was right about this, Shannon. He absolutely was. Listen, let's face it, in the 2016 election, we had an open seat. It was empty, and it was up for grabs, and Donald Trump won that. I just finished reading Selena Zito's great book, The Great Revolt, and she interviews all of these voters in Ohio, in Pennsylvania, who voted for Barack Obama. And one of the prime reasons they went for Donald Trump, even though they were against him on a lot of the things, was that seat. They wanted to make sure that Donald Trump could...
It's filled.
But it's not well because you need a Senate to approve that seat, right? Whoever he nominates. So I think it's going to motivate those voters. This is another reason to get voters out there and reaffirm their decision that President Trump is the man to fill that seat, and they want to make sure that there's a strong Republican Senate to confirm him.
Okay, Ezra Klein says that. Yeah, I think there's a good chance. Ezra Klein says this on Vox.com: we're 133 days away from the 2018 election. The path to a Senate majority for Democrats is narrow, but given that they only need to pick up 2 seats, it's certainly plausible. If Democrats take back the Senate, they have the opportunity to wield the same power Mitch McConnell did over any future Supreme Court vacancies, but only if Democrats learn the lessons of 2014 and actually turn out to vote. So even if the seat is filled, we've got a lot of justices who are up in age and may think about retirement. They may not, but you have to be watching them and thinking about that. So will Democrats be thinking past Justice Kennedy and that seat if there is somebody already locked in before the midterms and say, we can't allow this to happen again, and they show up?
I hope so, because Ezra is 100% right. But I do think this will motivate. I disagree. I think it's going to motivate Democrats, liberals, progressives, independents, people that just don't want a very conservative court, that don't want us to become a real-life version of Orwell's 1984 combined with Handmaid's Tale.
Oh, no.
And that is a concern for some of us on the left. But in all seriousness, not just Democrats, but Republicans too, that is a function of the presidency that they really care about, and they know when it comes to confirmation, you got to have a majority. I saw tweets out today, the Democrats got to block this, and I tweeted they can't.
No,
they can't. The only way they can block it, right? The only way they can block it is to change the composite. And obviously, if Senator McConnell wouldn't be a hypocrite and would keep to what he said last time around, let the people decide. Well, wait till we have the election.
Yeah, that was specifically a presidential election, Leslie, and you know.
Oh, I see.
Those were his words. He said presidential election.
There are a couple of Republicans, too, that you can't consider them a lock.
No, Susan Collins has already said if she thinks Roe v. Wade is a threat, that she won't vote for it. That's the thing. Not every Republican is painted the same, as you know. They don't march in lockstep, like you brainless Democrats do.
No, we don't. You just talked about the division in our party.
That's true, but when it comes to the Supreme Court, you guys always seem to come through. And here's the thing: in West Virginia, with Joe Manchin, with Claire McCaskill in Missouri, this means something. If you want to make this about Handmaid's Tale, that's going to motivate conservatives.
We don't want to make anything about Handmaid's Tale. Leslie and Larry, great to have you together.
Thank you.
Yes, we'll take this into the green room.
Yes, they will. All right.